All right, welcome in, welcome in, welcome in. Happy Monday morning to everybody. It is November 28th. We're rolling up here on Christmas. Hope everyone had a solid Thanksgiving outside of football, and it's time for an episode of Broncos for Breakfast. I am Nick Kendell on this Monday morning, joined by Scott Kennedy out there in Atlanta. Scott, how you doing? How was your Thanksgiving?
Thanksgiving was good. Busy. I shared Thanksgiving with Broncos country. Zach and I were on Thursday night, had a good time. And then the game was a little tougher on Sunday. I know some people probably turned it off pretty early. I consider this show to be the how should I put this? The Nathaniel Hackett watch. We're on too early. I think you're going to see us this again before the day is over. Not just on the regular show, but I just have this feeling we're going to have a gut reaction to a coaching change. That's my big guess.
Well, right now they do have the press conference scheduled at the normal time for Nathaniel Hackett. There's been no changes in terms of scheduling. If they were delayed on having that, then I'd be like, okay, sound the alarm, it's happening. But I'm going to go opposite. I think Hackett's going to stick around for the whole season. I think that's probably the way they're going to go. It does seem like the Broncos are interested maybe in Evero being the head coach, but also him being the defensive coordinator next year. And there's some sentiment that if you put Evero at interim head coach, you can't put Evero, you can't put that rabbit back in the hat, so to speak. So will be interesting to follow on that. But let's say hello to some people. Gordon Baccia coming in here saying, now what? On to 3-9. Yep. Now what? Indeed. 3-9 is certainly possible, especially with the Ravens losing last second to the Jacksonville Jaguars. Man, Trevor Lawrence, man, he looked like he is coming into his own. That was an incredible fourth quarter he had. He made like 4 or 5 just unbelievable throws. So watch out.
Super talented. I mean, we talked Justin Fields in here because he was available when the Falcons picked Pat Surtain. But one of the things, Kathy, I'm going to hit Kathy here in a second. One of the things that was never a question for me was Trevor Lawrence was number 1. It's like, okay, who might have been number 2, but Trevor Lawrence for me was the best quarterback prospect since Andrew Luck. So just number 1, build a team around him, and you're good to go.
Yep. Aaron, first, before we get to Kathy, because we already got your comment up, says, realistically, the best thing they can hope for by the season then is 5-12. Not good. That pick going to Seattle is going to be brutal. They need to get Hackett gone now and hope Evero can even get to 5 wins. I would not be against it. I don't know if it's going to happen, but we'll see. Also says, we're officially on Hackett Watch now. We've been officially on Hackett Watch since week 7, week 8. I mean, just it continues to get worse somehow, but we're definitely on Hackett Watch.
It was the London game where the first time we thought that he could be gone at the end of the game, and Kathy's just here, just take my money. Well, Kathy, we're hopefully going to provide you some value for your money. The NFL, they'll just take your money. They're not giving it back. They're and the thing is the ownership, they're not necessarily incentivized to put a good product on the field. We are. If we don't put a good product, you're not going to be here. So we appreciate you. So we're going to try and earn that. So thanks for kicking us off green this morning with the super chat, Kathy.
Yeah, absolutely. Talk about not providing good value and interest. I'm curious to see what that stadium looks like the next time Denver comes home. Obviously, they have to stick out on the East Coast, play at Baltimore next, and then they come home. Is it home against the Chiefs? I think that game is going to be flexed out of Sunday Night Football. Not great. I forgot to hit.
I'll grab it. I usually notice. I didn't this time.
Monday morning. All right. Well, let Scott grab that. What are we doing? Thank you, Mark, for keeping us on our toes. It was decorating the house yesterday, and we stayed up too late doing that, so a little tired. Jay Roper coming in saying, yo, good to see you, Jay. Ethan, good afternoon, gents in Broncos country. Ethan, man, what a great USA versus England game. 0-0. That's about as good of a 0-0 you could hope for. So that was the highlight of my sports this weekend, unfortunately. We got Fly Dragon Films coming in saying, I'm wondering if we shouldn't be on George Payton watch. What do you think on this one, Scott? Are we on George Payton watch?
I think his seat's warm. I do.
It has to be.
Yeah. Again, you start weighing. If I'm putting like check marks up, there's a lot more check marks on the positive side of the ledger. Unfortunately, the negative side of the ledger are car crashes and train wrecks. They're really, really bad. I mean, they're fireable moves right now. When I hire Nathaniel Hackett, when I trade away 5 picks, and when I commit $250 million to Russell Wilson, and all of those 3 don't just look debatably bad, they look horrendous right now. I mean, there's hindsight saying, okay, this looked good at the time, but that doesn't matter. It's only in politics where you can use that excuse. You can in sports, you're going to be judged on your results. And right now, the results, those 3 alone are going to make you vulnerable. Those 3 are all so bad that those are team killing moves right now. Yep. So yeah, his seat's warm.
I mean, it's like if a company buys another company and there's a merger, and then the company they purchased, so it looked good at the time, but then it completely tanks your entire, bottom line, then that CEO is probably going to be out of a job. And even though it looked good at the time, you're judged for the results, not always the process. If you have good process, more times than not, you're going to have good results, but you are judging the results at the end of the day. We got Naj coming in helping us with our results at the end of the day, saying 1999. Thank you so much, Naj, saying, I don't believe the Broncos will win another game this season. It doesn't appear the players believe they will either, based on yesterday's performance. And the offense is regressing to the point. So what's the point of keeping Hackett? The point of keeping Hackett is that I guess he's liked in the locker room, which is part of it. Maybe that's an issue, a little bit too much buddy versus, this is how it's going to get done. And the other thing is how much shifting of responsibilities happen on that side of the ball. But there's not much argument from me to keep Hackett. I'm just playing devil's advocate.
Yeah, are you looking for, some continuity where you can grade people on the same scale? I start moving some younger players around and see how they perform. Then is it fair to the other guys if I'm bringing in some young guys to evaluate and I'm playing them more and they're playing under a new system, new coach, is that fair to the other guys who I'm making decisions on? That's all I got, man. Trying to have a level playing field while I'm making evaluations for next season, that's all I can come up with. Yeah. Otherwise, for what we can see, for what we know, from the outside looking in, that's all I got. Otherwise, I make the move. I do. I think you have to.
Yeah. It feels an inevitability at this point. It would be pretty wild if he sticks around. Although all of a sudden there seems to be some sentiment that might be possible, which is unbelievable. That might just be some talking heads and me, everybody kind of making it even more and more talked about. So maybe that's nothing. But Chase Wellner coming in saying, morning, fellas. Did you already discuss the Mike Purcell yelling at Russell Wilson yet? No, we did not. And we will do that now. So Mike Purcell makes a dumb penalty, personal foul, which I get, but man, how many personal fouls did this team have yesterday? It was unbelievable. That's, this team kind of just lashing out and making some dumb, unheady plays. And Mike Purcell does that. And then he comes up on the sideline and looks like Russell Wilson says something to him. Mike Purcell yells back. Let's hear what Russell Wilson has to say about it, because it looked way worse than what both players are suggesting it was.
Yeah, I put the chat in the link to the chat that has the incident, and this is what Russ said after, and I'll just play this on its own.
No, Mike and I are on the same page. He came off, after they kicked the field goal, and he was pissed off. He just said, "We gotta F and go," and I agree. So me and him on the same page. There's no animosity there at all. We're on the same page. We got to win.
That looked like a guy that was comfortable to you?
No.
He said same page 3 times in that 15-second clip. That was just a short one. That was the short I put up on YouTube. The longer one, I think he says same page 4 times in about 35 seconds. He definitely was not comfortable. I don't know what all was said, but they stuck to the story. You lie and I'll swear to it, and it becomes a truth. But there needs to be some tempers flaring out there. Again, what's worse than we're seeing it now in the chat. We're seeing it from what's worse than anger is apathy. When the guys just mail it in and I don't care, that's when you're lost. If Hackett's there because you guys like him, play for him. Okay, show it. Right now, you're showing that you don't want him there, and a lot of you don't care if you're there or not either. So we'll see.
Yeah, we got Ryan Slavic coming in saying, good morning, gents of Broncos country. We will need to fire Hackett. Peyton ownership needs to have a serious conversation with Wilson. We need to rebuild the culture of the Broncos. Agreed. Jeremy, Sean, good to see you. Who said it couldn't get worse? We got some games left to see that. Bama X saying, good morning, Broncos country. Not much more to say at this point. Definitely. I don't recognize this one. Kudos. But he says, now what do? We stop watching with confidence, sleep in. Well, don't sleep in with the show, but sleep in on Sundays if you want. Montana coming in saying, morning, guys. Wins will happen one day. Hashtag MHH for life. Yeah, one day for sure. We got JJ.
I don't think it's gotten worse.
Yesterday was the worst. Yesterday sucked.
I think for me, it's like, talking about rock bottom. The Raiders was rock bottom for me. It's like, I picked the Panthers. The Panthers are 3-0 at home underneath this coach. You're losing to do you really expect to beat the Chiefs? So you get your brains beat out by the Chiefs. Does that make you feel any worse? No, man. I'm at expectations level now. You're looking at 3-14 maybe based on what we've seen so far, right? Losing to the Raiders and Josh McDaniels twice, to me, that was rock bottom. Now, you might not be going up any, but it's not getting worse.
I'll disagree. I think yesterday was the worst because of how absolutely pathetic and inept the offense looked. I mean, this was the worst. The offense has been bad this year. Mm-hmm. They shouldn't have scored any points. The 3 points that they got, guess what? They were gifted the ball on the Carolina 27-yard line after a muffed punt. They struggled to move the ball from there. The touchdown, they had about 20 chances in the red zone after penalty to get a chance to score a touchdown. This offense was horrible. The special teams, you have penalties on special teams. You have fumbles on special teams. You have missed kicks on special. I mean, it's god awful.
To your point, this was the first game it looked like they quit.
And the defense too.
Yeah, that's what I mean. The whole team. Like, I saw this in week 4 last year. Yeah. Week 4, I think I said that's a dead man walking. Week 4 or 5, because they started 3-0. Yeah. So I'd say week 5, when first loss, second loss, it looks like they quit. This was the first one where it really did look like they had thrown in the towel. Like, we're done with this.
And this was probably Russell Wilson's probably one of his worst games as well. I mean, that's hard to say, but like, it was horrible. And people will blame the offensive line. Brian Burns was getting home, but Russell Wilson's got space to navigate in the pocket, and he's not stepping up to, if your edge rusher takes a wide arc towards the quarterback, you know what that quarterback does? You step into the space that was vacated.
Create your lanes.
And
instead, and he wasn't just having passes batted down. He was hitting guys in the sternum with the ball.
Yeah.
Those weren't just, okay, that was unlucky that, you made a pass and a guy got his hand up and hit it. I'm hitting guys in the face mask with the ball. Yeah. It was tough.
JJ, thanks for your comment. We got Kathy coming in saying, hello. At this point, Naj can be the head coach. I'll be athletic trainer and Scott can call plays. We'll have some fun with that. Honestly, it doesn't matter until Russell Wilson gets it right, or you move on from Russell Wilson. But it's rough times right now in Denver, and it does not appear that the light at the end of the tunnel is a ways off, unfortunately. James Hyatt, good morning to you, James. Always good to see James come in. We have Holy Diver coming in saying, why is Butch Barry still on the coaching staff? He's the guy I'm most confident is going to be gone at the end of the season. He will be fired. Offensive line has been bad. I've heard a lot of the offensive linemen don't like him as well. Maybe that's a good thing. I don't know. But he's been very poor, and the offensive line has regressed under him. He's got to be gone. This is a poor unit.
Yeah, I'm pretty confident there's going to be a lot of turnover on there.
Yeah.
Can you will have Evero under contract. So unless someone makes him a head coach, you would still have him under contract. Unless you elevate him to an interim head coach, then he's got a new contract. Mm-hmm. But can you get the guy you want if you say one of the stipulations is you have to keep Evero? Probably not. That's not what they like to see. Otherwise, who else are you necessarily want to keep? Dwayne Stukes gives great press conference, but his special teams units aren't playing any much better. So he says all the right things, but it's not coming out in the wash. The results aren't there.
No, not even close. special teams is horrible. 32nd ranked special teams in football according to DVOA. Now I will say DVOA they put a weight on the Broncos because they play at altitude, so they grade against them a bit, but they're a horrible special teams unit. We got Greg Smith coming in saying top of the morning, Broncos for breakfast. Good to see you. Cristiano coming in saying good morning, Nick and Scott in Broncos country. So much pain. Should have fired Hackett if only to alleviate some. Don't mind the results, actually. Thank you so much for being here and helping us digest it.
Mhm.
Yeah, it's rough times right now. No doubt about that. We got our guy, Coach Chris. Oh, we got Richard first.
I want to hit Richard Miles, and we'll go to Coach Chris.
Yeah, it says,
Richard says, I heard a guy from NFL Channel said Wilson is still calling his calls from Seattle. That could explain why these guys not being on the same page. We talked about this last week, and this was a rumor that went around like wildfire. If your quarterback is so CTE that he's going up there and, thinking he is still in Seattle, making Seattle calls at the line from a previous existence, he doesn't need to be out there, period. He needs to be in a hospital. This is so far-fetched to me that he would go out there and start making audibles where everybody's like, what? That's not what we do. What are you calling? Why are you still in the Seahawks? That he's so messed up in the head that he's calling plays from his Seattle days. If he's out there, then that's criminal. That is criminally negligent from a medical perspective, and that is completely far-fetched to me. I have a really hard time believing that one.
Yeah. Yep. Ryan Thompson coming in saying, morning, fellas. Seems like we'd be better off keeping Locke and use that money to fill other roster spots. I feel we should have went after Jimmy G or someone else. In hindsight, of course. Of course. But it's unfortunate. I mean, I don't think there's ever been a time that I can remember in sports where there wasn't a significant injury where a player dropped off like Russell Wilson did. And maybe the injuries have piled up. I mean, God, we're grasping right now. We don't know for sure, but it's crazy how quickly he's gone from, top 10 quarterback to, oh my God, this guy's bottom 5 level. And we're stuck with that for $250 million for the next, so many years. So in hindsight, that had been the move. Man, heck, if we're playing really hindsight, maybe you trade down and take Desmond Ridder round 3 because of how cheap he was. Maybe you throw some picks at Green Bay for Jordan Love, who looked promising last night, who knew Hackett's offense. Maybe that's the move. But the reality is you're stuck with Wilson for sure next season. I mean, you could probably, I think there are ways to get out of it after the 2023 season that are really hurt your team, but it might be better just to rip that Band-Aid off. If he continues to look this bad, you're going to get another shot next season. So everybody's like, oh, you can't give up on Russell Wilson yet. You're married to him next season. So you're going to have another chance to try to figure it out. But if it's this bad again, you might not have no choice other than to move on from him.
Yeah, I think you're from a financial standpoint, you're better off just mothballing him. Like I said, if he's up there CTE'd to death calling Seattle calls or, stuff from, when he was at NC State, then he shouldn't be out there. That's negligent. But his cap hit next year is $35 million, and his dead cap in 2024, I'm sorry. His cap hit in 2023 is only $22 million, but his dead cap is 107. Mm-hmm. So it's $30 million extra across 2 seasons if you were to get rid of him. So you're better off just mothballing him. Same thing in 2024, $35 million cap hit versus an $85 million dead cap hit. Again, so that's $35 million. Just call that dead cap because you would bench him. But that would be, he is going to be a Denver Bronco for 2023 and 2024. It just makes more sense financially than being able to move him. 2025, that's when the cap hit escalates to $55 million and the dead cap drops to $49.6. That's when it makes more sense financially to not have him on the team. And we're all talking here of if Russell Wilson's not playing, what are your options? Non-injured reserve lists, those type of things. Stick him in mothballs, and you're paying him. You've already paid most of that money. That's why you've paid it in signing bonuses. That's why the cap hit is low, but the dead cap hit is so high. Coach Chris coming in. Walk me off the cliff. 7 years and counting, this team has quit, at least on the offensive side of the ball. It's embarrassing. We are the worst team in football now. We're the next Detroit. Move on from Hackett, please. The Texans at least look like they're trying, but they're really, really bad. Yeah. Otherwise, it'd be a close match. It was a close game earlier this season, wasn't it? I mean, where are your wins? 49ers, Texans, Jaguars?
Yep. Yeah, you could probably argue with the Jags. I think that they're ascending, though. They're way more talented.
I think the Jags would win again in a rematch.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
probably. The Colts are really dreadful. You might have another. I know we lost to them, but that's one that I think would be a coin flip if it happened.
Colts were toe to toe with the Eagles. They're 1-1 under Saturday, and they went toe to toe with the Eagles and lost in the last minute with the ball and a chance to win. I'd take the Colts again.
Yeah.
Chris, I'm with you on this. At least on the offensive side of the ball, the worst team in football now.
The Rams. The Rams are dreadful. So we get to see that at Christmas. Merry Christmas, everyone. But the Rams are a team I think they actually have the 3rd overall pick right now, sending it to Detroit. So there you go. Also, the Bears, maybe without Justin Fields, are another dreadful team.
It would be nice to see Detroit come out of it. Detroit's been awful for its history, with a splash here and there. Denver hasn't. Denver can bounce back for this. 7 years. You're talking 70 years for some of these franchises. That's all they've ever known. The pieces are here in place. Again, that there's enough talent on this team to be competitive, not to be this bad. And one of the reasons why they might be this bad is because expectations were set so high, Nick. When you're talking about Super Bowl or bust in the preseason and Super Bowl goes away by the 6th week of the year, and that's going to be obvious. Well, now you're in bust mode, Nick.
Yeah. I mean, competence would be nice to see out there, and we are so far from that. Losing to a Panthers team that, we both said was better than their record this season. They had a lot of guys on the defensive side of the ball, and their offensive line took it to the Broncos yesterday. I have these stats here. The Panthers yesterday ran for, the Broncos ran for 6.4 yards a carry compared to the 4 for the
Murray was going wild. I mean, it was the first half stats were like 100 yards rushing and 20 yards passing.
Yeah.
And it was like 11 on 8. It was 80 yards on 11 carries for Murray. And then I look again in the 4th quarter, and it was like 80 yards on 11 carries for Murray.
Yeah, you got behind. So that was it. And the Panthers were able to protect the football. I think how many times the Broncos even have a single sack in this game? 0 sacks, with the Broncos getting sacked 3 times for 17 yards. So they were constantly.
It's Darnold who's begging to be sacked.
Yeah, I mean, they had a fumble roll into the touchdown. I thought you couldn't advance the football on a fumble.
It says your own. They said the way they replied to it, and I think it's on 4th down. You can't do it on 4th down.
Okay,
but I don't know the rule for sure, but they changed it in the playoffs in the 70s. I think it was a Raiders game. Why are the Raiders always involved in this? It was a Raiders game where a fumble went into the end zone. And ended the game that way, and they changed the rule. But it said maybe your own fumble. I don't know. Otherwise, why not just kick the sumbitch down the field and cover it?
Yeah. Excellent question.
I fumbled.
Bama X and the commentators yesterday were done with the game as well. Yeah, the commentators said this Broncos fans deserve better with how bad this product is. So it's unfortunate. Jeff coming in saying, if Denver moves on from Hackett, is the interim coach tied to this playbook this late in the year? Yes, they're not going to make any grand sweeping changes. It's so hard to install an offense in general. You also have so many different pieces out there right now because of injuries that probably you're going to keep it simple. They might change some things they emphasize or work in a few other plays, but they can't scrap the playbook and go with something totally different out there other than changing what areas of the field and what plays they want to lean into.
But there's 500 plays in a playbook.
Yeah.
There's a ton. You can do better for sure.
Yep.
Yeah, and a lot of it is just terminology, So like a route tree, you may have different play calls, but as long as I know my assignment, I can call. The playbooks are variable, is basically what I'm saying. It's just the terminology that changes. The terminology is what changes a lot from play to play.
Mm-hmm.
Some system to system, I guess, is what I'm trying to say. It's not that much different. You hear players say all the time, the system's very similar, so it's just a matter of learning terminology. It's still football. These guys have been playing football their whole lives. Yeah. So you can do different things for sure.
Gonna have to figure some things out. I mean, hopefully the defense plays better, because I think you have something maybe with the protect, suffer ball, running the football. But if you're down 20 points early or whatever the heck it is, then you can't really do that. J Boys coming in. I don't recognize J Boys, but $5 saying, should the new owners fired the GM for this mess? Certainly possible. I think that, personally speaking, George Payton's been a good enough drafter, and it's a small sample size. We'll see how they look, years down the line here. But the only way you're going to get out of this Russell Wilson contract is by hitting above average in the draft. Now, this last draft is still the jury is out there, but the 2021 draft looks pretty good. Did you pay attention to Nick Bonito at all in this last game?
Some. He was
Not
struggling against the run. Again, this
Not
is
good.
the Panthers are a team that's not. We talked about this a little bit just a few minutes ago on the Falcons podcast, but the Panthers are a team that's going to want to run at you. They're even with Sam Darnold, who will do some crazy things. Most of what Sam Darnold was doing was bootlegs and waggles.
Yep.
It was still a run-based passing attack.
Yep.
Their bread and butter is we're going to run right at you and see if you can stop us. And then we're going to lean on our defense, which has a lot of talented players on it. Which doesn't, not that the Broncos match up well with anybody right now, but Bonito, that's definitely not his specialty, was trying to go up against them.
Yeah, he really struggled. That pick is looking not so great right now. And he had a lot of snaps yesterday. There's a lot of chance for him out there, but not even getting home and against the run, he was dreadful. There was a play, it was a run to the left side, and a tight end took him 3 or 4 yards out of the picture, and then he made a dive that was like 6 yards from the running back or something. It was like, oh my God, this is bad. It's getting bad quick. Naj coming in saying on the Orlando Franklin pod yesterday, he said Sutton is inconsistent. Great effort some plays, non-existent to others. If true, you think that's on Sutton or coaching? It's probably mostly on Sutton, but you got to be able to be dialed in and do the best you can, even when the team is struggling. And Sutton's got to be frustrated because of just how poor the quarterback and passing play has been around him. That being said, but he's got to make plays. A lot of people are in bad situations. You're a professional, and you got to go out there and give it all. Easy for me to say sitting on my butt here under a blanket in my basement talking to, hindsight on the game, but got to go out there and make plays. He had a dropped, would have been touchdown on a play that, again, Russell Wilson doesn't throw a great, short, accurate football, but hits him in the hands and slides out. You got to catch that if you are starting a wide receiver in the NFL.
One of my favorite lines from one of my favorite sports movies, attitude, reflect, leadership, captain. That said, that was a high school movie. That was Remember the Titans. That was a high school players and versus professionals. Lack of effort is a mark of professionalism, even if things aren't going well. And if he is doing that, then that's on him. He controls his own level of attitude and effort. And one of the factors contributing to that is the leadership and coaching and not holding him accountable. So it is on him, and it's both. It's both. If you're susceptible to being, and they call wide receivers divas anyway. It used to be the quarterback position. The wide receivers are divas. So if you're susceptible to mood swings or whatnot, that's the type of thing that will contribute to it. So not to give him a pass, but part of the reason why someone would not put forth, because he wasn't the only one. I said earlier, it's the first time I saw it look like this team had quit. Then that's on coaching and leadership and the credibility to grab somebody by the face mask and be on film and get fined for it. And say, listen, that was half-assed. That's not good enough. Go sit down. So we are real quick before we get back to Coach Chris. Talking about a coach with the gravitas to come in and basically own this place, because that's not Nathaniel Hackett. No. The who's running the ship out there. The players, it looks like for the most part, is if the Steelers part ways with Mike Tomlin. Tomlin comes in. Tomlin can walk in and say to anybody in that room, "Go sit down." And and if you don't like it, we'll go outside and talk about it. God, he would be such a perfect fit for this team right now.
You know what I think? I think I made a tweet about it the other day, but the only way you're going to beat Russell Wilson is if you have somebody who can come in here and out cringe him. There's one person that comes to mind for me who can out cornball Russell Wilson in a display of dominance, and that's Jim Harbaugh. I think if you bring in, Jim Harbaugh's beaten Ohio State twice now. Why would he want to leave Michigan? Well, didn't leave the NFL in the best circumstances. He has obviously been a great coach. Took 2 49ers teams that have not done much since he left to prominence with multiple different quarterbacks there, built teams up. And I think if you brought in Harbaugh, you'd have to give him general manager abilities as well. And this is, totally a fever dream at this point. But the way the You know what you can't say about Michigan? They have an identity. They're going to out physical you, out tough you, trench play on both sides of the ball scrimmage. I mean, God, what I would give to have a team that plays like that Michigan team played at Ohio State right now. Because this Broncos team, not only are they, look like they quit on the field, they are soft, all caps lock, bold on both sides of the line of scrimmage. This is a soft team. They have no punch in them. So
you know,
I
it's
don't
funny
know.
when you started thinking cornball, cringe, and rah rah. Who's the first guy that came to mind for me?
Hackett.
Pete Carroll.
Oh, Pete Carroll. Yeah. God, can we
That's who I'm
retroactively
thinking of,
give
'cause
people?
I've said before on here, I said, he's 7 years old. I wish I had that kind of energy at any point in my life. He's amazing when it comes to, and that stuff, the detractors for Pete Carroll, that's what they point to, the rah rah, all the man does is win.
Yeah.
Chris coming back in, 7 years and a 34% win rate. Unreal. This puts things in perspective on why every fan is so upset. And the reason why is because they started talking it up, made some big moves, and the expectations changed, Chris. Not just the steady losing. It was the hope this year that changed things as far as the demeanor goes. Patton needs to make a statement. He's been quiet all season. Look at what Irsay did with Saturday. They are a different team. Short sample size. They played 2 games. But I agree as far as, and for those of you listening, Jim Irsay is nuts. He fired Frank Reich and brought in a guy who had never coached the NFL, and Jeff Saturday, one of his former players. So when we talk about players to come in, who could come in and coach his team, it doesn't necessarily have to be somebody internal. It can be an external move. Peyton needs to make a statement. Again, I text last night, fellas, we need to be ready to do a gut reaction tomorrow afternoon because it could happen today.
Yeah. I was somewhat surprised this morning when I woke up, checked Schefter's and Rappaport's tweets of no information there, but we'll see. It's definitely frustrating. Broncos lose one more game and they guarantee 6 losing seasons in a row. And unless things turn around drastically next season, it might be 7 next year because Russell Wilson is taking up so much of your contract or so much of your space. You can't move on from him. And he looks so ironic. Mr. Unlimited looks like the most limited quarterback in football right now because he lost some of his mobility in the game. So he can't escape the pocket, which means he has to throw from has to throw from within structure, but he can't see through the line of scrimmage. He's not thrown over the middle of the field. He's not accurate. I mean, you better hope that the injuries around him, the coaching staff is super incompetent, and he's playing through injuries himself right now because yesterday was some of the worst quarterbacking play I've seen from Denver this season, which is saying something because it's been bad, but it was dreadful. Andrew Lampy coming in saying, morning, everyone. Hope everyone had a great Thanksgiving. It was fine. I've reached the apathy point for this Broncos team. I'm still pretty damn PO'd about the Hawkeyes losing to Nebraska. But anyway, thankful for this content. Thankful for you, Andrew, saying can't be easy to talk about this S show. You know what? Car crashes are sometimes, more, and I wouldn't say entertaining, but there's a lot of drama and content from covering a calamity. So that's where we are on this Broncos team right now. And if Russell Wilson continues to be this poor, it's going to continue to be a little bit of an S show.
Yeah, I saw a comment yesterday after the chat says, you guys are starting to sound the same. Well, there hasn't been a lot of change, unfortunately. That's the thing. We talk about things that could change. We've talked about injuries, and I'll say it again because I've said this before. I think some of the fixes here are fairly readily attainable as far as, can you get competent coaching? That should be possible. That one's harder. You don't know as much, but can you fix this interior line in one off season? Yes, you can. You can. Now, how are they going to be coached again? Because the same guys have regressed, but I can with second, third, fourth, fifth round picks with middle second day 2 and 3 picks. I can get guards and centers with $30 million in salary cap. I can get guards and centers, lots of them, several of them. I should bring in what we said the other day, Nick. What's the over under on how many new offensive linemen will be on the 53? What do you carry 8 on a 48 man on a day? So let's say there's 9. How many new offensive linemen would you expect to see in on the 53 on August 1st next year or September 30th, whatever, or September 1st?
At least half. I'm guessing Garrett Bowles is back. Quinn Miners is still here. I'm guessing you keep Cushenberry because he's cheap. You still have Luke Wattenberg. He's cheap. There's guys right there. I personally would not be against bringing back Cam Fleming. Now, I know Brian Burns beat him yesterday around the arc. He gave him a wide arc. A typical quarterback would step up into space. Already covered that. But I think that probably half of the line, specifically, you need to be attacking left guard, center, and right tackle. There need to be some options there, and they need to be patched via the free agency first and then fortified via the draft. You need to feel comfortable after free agency and then further establish it in the draft.
Philip Sims says, I don't know if he was saying this to us or people in the chat. He says, you keep blaming Russell Wilson. Hackett is the one who needs to go. Philip, I'm not sure what time you were able to come in. We started at about 9:35 Eastern. We already fired Hackett.
Yeah.
We already did. We're already past that. So we agree with you. Hackett, I've said Hackett could be gone today. And I just cannot see any scenario in which he's back next year. So Hackett, we've already made the mental, it's not even a leap, nudge that Hackett's not going to be here.
No.
Maybe as soon as this afternoon. So, and the thing is Wilson will be. So he's somebody we talk about. Is he fixable? Can he do better? Because Wilson's going to be on this team the rest of this season, 2023 and 2024. So 2.5 seasons, Wilson will be a Denver Bronco. So we will talk a little bit more about him until there is news, because as far as we're concerned, Nick, am I wrong on this? There's when I say we are of the same mind that Nathaniel Hackett will not be coaching this team next year.
If he is, it's a tank job, and it's a you made this mess, now lay in it situation. And I think they are honestly going hard for one of those top quarterbacks in the draft in Caleb Williams or Drake May. I think if you have Hackett here next year and it's this again, it's going to be rough to watch. But you can't call it anything but a tank job. And I know there's some quarterbacks people are excited about in this upcoming class. It's definitely better than last year's. And Bryce Young and quarterback at Alabama, Bryce Young and CJ Stroud. But quarterbacks in 2024 appear to be pretty darn special, because they don't have any quite like CJ Stroud in this class. Very accurate, but he's very limited to playing within structure. I think you are getting a Jared Goff kind of quarterback. Bryce Young is super quick, but he is teeny tiny, and you have to worry about him taking hits in the NFL, in my opinion. We're seeing issues right now with Russell Wilson running a system, getting the ball hit. We're seeing Kyler Murray have issues with height here. There is a point where I think the height is an issue. Bryce Young still probably should go number one because he's a playmaker and talented. But the 2024 class, they are not. And obviously there'll be questions as more we put to more of a scouting lens on those guys. But Drake May and Caleb Williams, if they were coming out in this class, would probably be the first two picks and the first two quarterbacks off the board.
Reading through the chat a little bit, and everything seems binary again, as usual. It's not this, it's that. It's not this, it's that. It's not that, it's this. It's both.
Everything. It's everything.
It's not Hackett, it's Wilson. It's not Wilson, it's Hackett. It's we put percentages on there. It's injuries, it's offensive line, it's Peyton and his team building. It's the offensive line coaching, it's Hackett, it's Wilson. There is no this or that. If only it was that simple. It's as Kathy said, it's everything, and that starts at the top, and that's why we said earlier. That's why George Payton's seat is going to be getting a little warm, because it's an entire mess right now. Now, what are the things that are the one thing that's the hardest to fix is your quarterback, because of the financial commitment you have made to him, which is a big, like I said, that's the train wreck of the wreck on the ledger on George Payton's side, is extending him when he had 2 years left on his deal and he hadn't played in Denver yet. You didn't need to do that. That's the train wreck. But this isn't binary. There's a lot going on, and it's a whole lot easier to change a head coach than it is to change a 53. And the head coach is going to fall is going to fall when the team underperforms this badly.
Yep. It's rough right now. It is everything. It's injuries. It's weapons. Two Spider-Man memes pointing at each other. It's the playmakers. It's the heart. It's the play design. It's the coaching staff. It's the quarterback. It's the running game. It's everything. And how do you fix this? I think, unfortunately, you can only improve this incrementally. But you don't have the worst scoring offense since the Browns in 2000 in points per game without everything going wrong. on this side of the ball, and pretty much everything has gone wrong. I mean, outside of, has there been, so obviously we didn't have, what's it, Latavius Murray on this team, so we didn't have any expectation for him coming in this season, but outside of Greg Dulcich, has there been a single offensive player who has outperformed expectation? Every single person has been worse.
And Dulcich didn't have time. I said he didn't have time to get screwed up. They just threw him in cold. So they didn't have time to ruin him yet. Andrew Lampy never ruins us. He says, he might spoil us. Thank you, Andrew. Yeah. So I know everyone is getting impatient, but I, for one, am glad new ownership is sitting back. That's what we all wanted, deep pockets and leave the football side alone for the most part. I agree. That's what we do all want. They want to be involved in you don't want them micromanaging things. And, I would give George Paton one more hire, and you're tied to that head coach. That's how I would go. I wouldn't get rid of George Paton yet, despite the fact that his seat is warm based on some of these moves. I would give him one more hire, and I would be listening in as an owner. I would be listening in on the process.
Yeah, definitely. We got Lawrence also coming in here saying, "What's up, guys? Coming in, North Dakota, man." Andy, does this suck? I can't even put into orange and blue Christmas lights, and we play on Christmas is going to suck. Hey, the one team that might actually be worse than you and the LA Rams. So la-di-da. Maybe we'll get a win in that one. That Rams team is horrible, but so are the Broncos. So is what it is. And it's rough right now. Russell Wilson's playing horribly. Kenneth Murray's been terrible. Or not, excuse me, God, Kenneth Murray. Latavius Murray has been a bright spot. But other than that, what do you even build on? Next season, we're talking about the offense going from worst in 22 years, the worst offense in 22 years. That's unbelievable. To hopefully maybe middle of the pack. And how do you do that? I think the way to do that is to really lean in on the offensive line and lean into the run game personnel, because I think with a good running game, you at least have a floor. That's something you can lean on in every single game and make the job easier for Wilson. Now, is that an indictment of your $250 million quarterback? You bet your ass it is. But I think that's probably the only way to dig yourself out of this hole right now. Become a team that is really balanced in the run game, more efficient in the run game, and then take your shots vertically when you can. I think that's the only way I see them getting even an average offense out of how the way this offense looks right now and how Wilson is playing.
Which you can do. Again, and one helps the other. It's cyclical. I've said a zillion times, this offensive line is so bad, it's hard for me to evaluate everything else. But, we've seen enough to know that you should still be doing better than that. Talking about memes, I like that. Our expectations were low for you, but holy, you couldn't even live up to that. So I agree. But again, some of this is, is Russell Wilson so uncomfortable? Is this such a bad mix? Is he so under pressure that it's turned him into something he's not? And can that be salvaged? Can that be brought back? You better hope so. But you can, the easiest thing to fix of all of the problems right now will be the interior OL. That's the easiest one. And for me, that's one of the biggest problems. So let's start there in the offseason and then work our way out.
Yeah. Just some stats here that really are telling of this last game. I mean, how inept is this Broncos pass attempt? Scott, did you see what the average yards per completion were for this Broncos game, or average yards per pass?
Yeah, I text my buddy during the game. I said, Russell Wilson is, I think he was like 11 of 18 for 66 yards or something, but it was 4 yards per attempt on 18 attempts at one point.
Well, the Broncos finished for 3.3 yards per pass in this game, which is unbelievable. Broncos ran for more yards per attempt than they did throwing the football. Russell Wilson, I mean, just sacked for 3 for 17 yards too. God bless the NFL. One thing I'll give the NFL credit for here real quick. They actually put sacks in the passing game stats versus college football, where you have like your quarterback run for negative 35 yards in a game. It's like, no, they were pass plays that he was sacked on. Those aren't rushing yards. I digress. But those are part of the output as well. But yeah, just a completely toothless offensive performance outside of the running game, which was efficient. But because of how bad the Broncos offense was at passing, they couldn't string together drives. The Panthers had the ball almost the entire first half, and the defense got run down. You can, I think, lean into the run game, but your passing game has to be at least a little bit more competent than we saw. And the defense also.
That's that you're going out on a limb on that one. All right. To emphasize your point, put the emphasis on the wrong syllable here. What is Russell Wilson's career low in yards per attempt going into this year?
7.
7.1.
Okay.
7.1. So that's how bad 3.3 is. And it was last year at 7.1. But, he had a 7.2 in a Pro Bowl season in 2017 and a 7.5 in 2020. But, he's historically, that's fairly high. But to come in at half of that at yards per attempt, especially with a completion percentage, I think he was throwing for 66% at one point, and you're just dinking and dunking and all that type of stuff. That's historically bad. It's really unfathomable. Again, we talk about, I keep coming back to, you asked me over the summer and we did a debate on this, is where can this go wrong? I was like, how can it? If everybody stays healthy, you've got proven this, proven that. Oh God. I hope nobody digs that one up. It went horribly wrong. It's the worst detractors in the world could not have said, okay, 3.3 yards per attempt. Nobody's saying that. Says, oh, he's regressing. He's going from 7.1 to 6.5. Okay. But 3.1, and that was, again, his incompletions at one point, again, he was like 11 of 12. He was 66% at halftime, somewhere in that neighborhood. Ugh.
It's ugh, indeed. Kevin Orcutt come in saying players in the locker room don't like Russ. How do you fix that? I don't want to say that's true for everybody, but the fact that Russell Wilson, has his own office did sound like this offseason. A lot of people, he's not one of the guys, and that makes it hard. And how do you fix that? I mean, can you come in there and take away privileges like Russ? We talked about this offseason when he's like bringing in his own trainers and his own quarterback coach. Like, if this goes bad, this could get ugly and cause a lot of weird power dynamic situations that, guess what? It's gone even worse than bad. And can you, I guess, put the genie back in the bottle with that? Like, can you take away the office? Can you take away the personal staff and stuff in there? I mean, I saw somebody also comment in here, Russ didn't want to be in a run first offense. I don't give a bleep what Russell Wilson wants. I want to win we need to win football games. So if it means that he has to go back to handing it off, 9 times out of 14 or something, I don't care. Win football games. Put himself in the best situation. You need to protect him from himself.
Good behavior gets privileges.
Yeah.
I mean, it's simple. I used to say, training my dog, good doggies get doggy privileges. It works like that with people too. No, you don't get all this stuff if you're not performing and it's causing attention. Sorry. And can Nathaniel Hackett do that? I don't know. New coach can. A new coach can come in and he better. So this isn't working. It's causing problems with the rest of the guys. He's got to go. Your office is I'm taking your office. If you don't like it, tough. I call them voluntary workouts. Dennis Francione wasn't a great coach. This was the first time I ever heard this phrase. Talking about, oh, what about voluntary workouts? He goes, yeah, they're voluntary workouts. You know what else is voluntary? Playing time. Playing time is voluntary. So, who's got the stones to come in and do it? Anybody should. It's not like he's got the locker room now where you're coming off a Super Bowl. You don't do it if you aren't even talking about doing it if it's successful, and you can't do it if he's successful. No. But it'd be real easy. The entire team would back you up on that.
Yeah, it's rough right now. We got Josh N coming in with the gorgeous helmet. Now, honestly, a little bit of just a little fun here. I know a lot of people in Broncos country, when I talk about getting rid of the, but right back here, that robo horse dragon looking thing right there. It's like, oh, we won a Super Bowl with that uniform and that design. Well, we also had our worst years in franchise history right now, and with this uniform design right now. So I'm hoping that we have change whenever the new uniform comes, because that is coming inevitably here, but hopefully we move on from that. And what made me think of it was Josh N displaying the beautiful old school helmet here, my favorite, saying, look what Pete did with Russ, talking about Pete Carroll in Seattle. Said, ran the ball till the stitches were off, run big plays off play action. Maybe it's the system. Look at Geno. Most of Russ's great plays were miracle throws anyways. I mean, Scott mentioned it earlier. You guys are being repetitive in here. I'm going to be repetitive in here again, and I've been saying it since week 8 now. I wanted to get a 8-game sample size with Russell Wilson. saw enough to have some opinions. I think you need to lean hard into the run game and the run game personnel. And that's not just because, you're limiting the throwing attempts, the pure drop back, surveying the whole field's attempts from Russell Wilson. But right now, the Broncos are seeing a lot of too high safety shells because teams know that they can vacate the middle of the field and Russell Wilson will not make them pay. How do you make them flood the middle of the field to open up areas down the field? Dominant rushing attack. You have to be able to punch them in the mouth and make them allocate resources to the box to stop the run. And the Broncos can't do that right now with any consistency. Colin was making a joke about the yards over expected, but there was a graphic that was just out that had running back yards over expected based on the blocking. Melvin Gordon is one of the worst 3 running backs in football this season in that. The offensive line and that's on top of the offensive line being bad. So Melvin's not even getting it done when the offensive line does get it done. He's gone now. Murray's been a little bit better there, but it's a pretty punchless rushing attack. I think you have to lean into a dominant run game, and that means another running back, probably because I see somebody else commented in here, oh, you're going to have Javonte Williams back next year? What's Javonte Williams even going to look like after tearing 2 ligaments in his leg? Are we going to see him next year? I don't know. So you probably have to get another running back in here, and you definitely have to go after the offensive line. I agree with Scott that you can use, day 2 picks to get the offensive line right, but it's not a guarantee. Day 2 pick, Dalton, better.
Not necessarily right where it's thick, but I can improve it. So
I think it's long-term you can, but not immediately. Dalton Reisner, early round 2 pick. Lloyd Cushenberry,
doesn't mean
third round
you got it right.
Yeah, that's true. That's what I'm saying. There's no guarantee on that, improving the line with the day 2 picks next season. I think you have to go in the free agency first.
Let me pick 3rd, 4th, and 5th, and I'll improve your offensive line.
Yes, I agree.
That sounds arrogant. I don't care. The bar is that low.
Yeah,
I can improve this offensive line with 3 picks in the 2nd, 3rd, and 4th rounds, a center and 2 guards, or vice versa. 3 interior linemen for 2 spots will improve because Dalton Reisner is not good. Lloyd Cushenberry is not good. Graham Glasgow is not good. It's a low bar. So I'm not being overly arrogant here. It's a low bar.
I don't disagree with you, but the NFL is fickle and it's hard to predict. So I still think I would pay somebody in free agency first to have a known quantity there and have a linchpin on the unit going forward, personally speaking. And then you get 2 draft picks in the first, 5 rounds need to be into your offensive line as well. DWI guys coming in, Ethan, with the 50 pounds. Thank you so much. I was expecting to get some dollars here at the USA game tied there, but it is what it is. No, thank you so much, Ethan, saying, I think I will not be surprised if Nathaniel Hackett makes it to the end of the season as a Denver coach. Peter King wrote this morning in Football Morning in America. It does seem like a lot of indications right now that Nathaniel Hackett might get to the end of the season. Would be shocked, though, if it's anything beyond that. He'll be one of the first ones announced, and we'll see. I mean, the Broncos, you have 2 games against the Chiefs left. You want to talk about getting an embarrassing game? Chiefs could put 50 on this team if the defense is starting to, relax a little bit. So unfortunate, but we'll see how it plays out.
Yeah, with the overuse of the negatives, I read that incorrectly. So Peter King is saying he thinks that Nathaniel Hackett will make it to the end of the season. Yeah, I read that wrong the first time with the use of the negatives in there. No, it wouldn't surprise me either way. I would, if you survive the Raiders, that's when I said, okay, we'll probably see all the way through. Unless we see things like we saw yesterday, which was dissension on the sidelines and the team basically quitting in all phases. Once we start seeing that, I'm starting to wrap up the it could happen type. But no, I won't be surprised either. But I wouldn't be surprised if there was a press conference today announcing that he'd been relieved of his duties either. And I don't think anybody would be overly surprised.
No.
Appreciate you, Ethan. Always.
And we got Rudy Valdez saying, listen, guys, everyone needs to calm down a little bit on Russ being washed. He has his number 2, number 3, and number 4 wide receivers out with 4 rookies on the offense, as well as left tackle, center, and right tackle out on top of 2 play callers. It's definitely things, like we said, things do not get this poor this season unless everything goes off the rails, and everything has gone off the rails on the offensive side of the ball. And we're going to get next season with Russell Wilson regardless. Russell Wilson is the quarterback next year. People come in and trade him, cut him. It's not happening. He's your quarterback next year. You're going to have next year to try to figure out a system and personnel that works to get this offense out of the complete depths of despair that we haven't seen in the NFL since 2000. So definitely, it's not all on Russell Wilson. However, even with everything out there that you put out here, Rudy, for a $250 million quarterback, you'd hope it would look a little bit better and he could shoulder some of that load, where I'm not asking for a top 10 offense. I'm not asking for the worst offense in 22 years, though, for that level of quarterback. So I think that it's everything. We're going to see next year as well. Whether or not we like that is what it is. But, I guess we'll find out if Russ is washed next year with another iteration of this roster and improvements on this team to help maximize what he does best. But hopefully you have a coach and an offensive mind that can come in and say, Russell Wilson, we looked at the data and we looked at the tape. This is what you do best. It's always good when you have a quarterback who knows what they are best at, but it does seem like Russell Wilson wants to be Drew Brees when that's not who he is. So you need to tell Russell Wilson what he's best at versus him telling you what he wants to do.
Isn't it crazy how much football has changed as far as what's acceptable and what's not? I was like, I'm going to look up Dan Marino and see what his drop-off was before he retired. He only had 1, 2, 3 seasons, and those were usually shortened seasons by injury, where he didn't throw at least double-digit interceptions. He threw 252 interceptions.
Game's changed.
That's the protection of the ball, and the emphasis on that has been crazy. And I was wrong. 7.1 is actually this year for yards per attempt. That's his career low. His career low prior was 7.2 in 2017. So 3.3 is still unbelievably bad. And Rudy, I agree with you on this, and I've been saying that. That's why I'm not ready to throw in the towel on Russell Wilson. In 2020, it's not that long ago, 2020, he had 40 touchdowns against 13 interceptions, threw for 4,200 yards. It was a career high. You're not going to get half of that this year. You're not even going to get a third of that in the touchdowns. So a drop-off like that, again, let's get this offensive line playing to at least an adequate level, a step up to bad, get your receivers healthy, and then let's see. Then let's find out and take control of it. I don't want to hear any more of this. We're developing this offense together BS. Nobody does that. Are you in charge or not? Why are we paying a coach if he's going to coach us?
Yeah.
Anyway.
Yep, it's frustrating.
I let one of those out a few minutes ago. They're exhausting.
Yep. Well, the season is mercifully coming to a close pretty soon. I'd rather watch bad Broncos football than no football at all. And we will start to be pivoting to free agency in the draft and just figuring out how we can get this team on the right path. We're going to be probably covering another head coaching search and all of that. But going to be a tough game this week, going to Baltimore. Still some time to reflect on this Panthers game. And I don't think I'll probably pick the Broncos to win a game the rest of the season. Luckily for Broncos country, the Texans have like a 2-game lead on that first overall pick. So it'd be pretty shocking for the Broncos to send one overall to Seattle. But a top 3 pick right now seems more likely than not. And definitely you're sending them a top 10 pick. But we'll see how it plays out. Luckily, the Broncos do have a first-round pick to play around with this draft cycle.
Now, the teams that you would expect to be, have a chance against, and again, no game is, you're not beating anybody if your defense doesn't play at an extraordinarily high level that has been playing all year, which it didn't against Carolina. They didn't play bad. They were just, the field position, your first 2 drives start inside the 10, special teams again. But at Baltimore, Kansas City, Arizona at home, at LA, we talked about how bad LA is, but they can move the ball and they're at home. At Kansas City and then LA Chargers to finish. I wouldn't expect the Broncos to be favored in any of those.
Yeah, Cardinals are another team where the wheels are falling off the bus. I don't know if you saw Kyler Murray yesterday call out the scheme and the coaching staff in the post-game press conference, but it's pretty ugly there in Carolina. They also fired their offensive line coach a day before that Monday night game against the 49ers. So Broncos, some winnable games. Doesn't mean they're going to do it, but coming up. So we'll see how it's happening. We appreciate you guys. Scott, any final thoughts before we wrap this on up? Rough game here. Probably, in my opinion, the worst one of the season, given it was, we hardly even talked about how incompetent the special teams was. But, and it was laughable how bad the special teams was. Other than the punting, I thought actually the punts were fine. The coverage was dreadful.
Yeah, one of them was, it was a 57-yarder on the fly from out of the end zone. That was a big return, set up a short field early on, out punting his coverage. That happens, but yeah, the special teams haven't been good. Montreal Washington is good with the ball in his hands. His decision-making hasn't been that great coming in. But no, overall, I would just say this is the first game I felt like the Broncos players didn't give it their best effort. as a unit on both sides of the ball. And that's not a good sign for Nathaniel Hackett's future.
Yeah, it is certainly not a good sign. It's rough. Hopefully things get a little bit better here, and we got the draft to look forward to. As always, hope springs eternal come April, but we appreciate you guys so much. Things will eventually get better one day, but make sure you're following. Things are getting better every day out here at Mile High Huddle. We appreciate you guys coming in. Make sure you're following Scott and I on Twitter. Scott is at Scout Kennedy. I am at Nick Kendell MHH. Also, make sure you're following us at BFB_pod. That's BFB_pod for Broncos for Breakfast. Easy to remember. And at Mile High Huddle on Twitter. Also follow us on our Facebook accounts at facebook.com/Mile High Huddle pod and facebook.com/Mile High Huddle. I will make sure to do a better job of putting those shows immediately live when we go live tomorrow, rather than being 10 minutes in and forgetting. Thank you for whoever called us out on that. And also make sure you guys are subscribing, liking, and sharing over on YouTube. Click that bell notification so that way you know when we go live. Sorry things are so rough right now, guys. It's unbelievable that we're still here, and given the resources and the commitment made to Russell Wilson, it might be rough for a couple more seasons still, but we're going to keep bringing you the stories here and analyzing this team regardless, and hopefully you guys keep showing up. We appreciate you guys so much, even though the season's been rough, for all the eyes and the communication and the engagement. So you guys have a great rest of your Monday. Hopefully don't let this team get you too down, and hopefully you don't reach full-on apathy, because still love this team. But make sure you guys are continuing to choose kindness and compassion. And as always, go Broncos.